6th, 2024, and this is the Washington Times front page. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. Top Senate Republicans say that bipartisan talks to address the southern border are on the verge of collapse. Ramsey Touchberry and Stephen Dinan report House Republicans have been balking at negotiations, imperiling chances of a broader deal for support for Ukraine and other U.S. allies. Border talks have become the linchpin of a $110 billion national security spending package. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said Wednesday that a deal was in doubt. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer acknowledged the speed bump, but insisted negotiations were still on track for the bill. Speaking of the border, illegal activity at it cooled in the first part of January. That coincided with increased Mexican efforts to block illegal immigrants from reaching the border, Stephen Dinan reports. Mexico has taken migrants off of trains and begun flying or busing those that it catches farther south. In Arizona, the Border Patrol's Tucson sector reported 2,700 migrants per day in mid-December. That dropped to about 1,300 per day in mid-January. And in San Diego, the daily flow has dropped from about 1,200 in early December to about 600 in January. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators are following President Biden on the campaign trail, trying to keep voters focused on the Israel-Hamas war. The president has tried to shake the demonstrators, Jeff Murdoch reports, but they are appearing frequently at what are supposed to be friendly campaign venues. Young voters and Arab Americans represent a significant portion of the Democratic Party's base. Both groups went heavily for Biden in 2020, but their frustration with his support for Israel could keep them away from the polls in November. Those demonstrators are also showing up in state capitals, greeting lawmakers at the start of the 2024 legislative sessions with demands for ceasefire resolutions. Valerie Richardson reports in Colorado, the House recessed while state patrol officers ejected demonstrators shouting pro-Palestinian slogans from the gallery. The next day, protesters outside the Capitol in Denver were so loud that they could be heard inside the chamber during Governor Jared Polis's State of the State address. At least 8 state legislatures overwhelmingly approved pro-Israel resolutions in the aftermath of the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. And finally, media reports say North Korea has given up on diplomacy and is preparing for a new war with South Korea. Andrew Salmon reports North Korean forces continue artillery, missile, and maritime drills, including cruise missile firings. South Korea is responding with tough talk of its own, while upgrading its security ties with Japan. Both are engaged in military exercises with the United States. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.